Progress comes slowly to the land in little changes like those you can see in this old street. Telephone wires, electric lamps. The coffee house that once cast its shadow only on donkeys and carts now echoes the motor of a passing car. The public well in the square never runs dry anymore as water bubbles through a pipe from a distant reservoir.
Big joke. I'd like to see you try to drink from that fountain.
Why didn't you wait a minute, Hamid? No doubt a lot of water was being used elsewhere on the line.
The whole system is no good. What can we expect of something built with American aid?
That's unfair, Hamid. That is unfair. We do have running water now, where we had dry wells or floods before.
As far as I'm concerned, if the Americans don't come through with more funds to improve what they've done so far, we should turn elsewhere for help.
Just like that.
Just like that. There are other big nations ready to extend credit to us, you know.
I know. And if we ever got involved with those foreign powers you refer to, we'd end up with an innkeeper's bill. A what, Effendi? I was remembering one of the old stories about Nasr-ed-din Hoja, a wise man who lived in this land 500 years ago. The story is called The Innkeeper's Bill. It teaches that you should never get in debt to anyone whose main purpose is to take advantage of you. A merchant traveling through the country to sell his wares in a distant place stopped at a roadside inn not far from the Hoja's village. The innkeeper made the merchant welcome and served him for supper 1 roast fowl, 2 boiled eggs, and half a loaf of bread. And hay for his donkey. The next morning, even though the merchant did not know the innkeeper well, he asked if he could settle accounts on his return trip through the district. And the innkeeper agreed. The trip was long and hard for the merchant. 1 month passed, then another. And finally, after 3 months, on his way home, the merchant returned to that same inn near the Hoja's village. The innkeeper served him as before. Next morning, as he was leaving, the merchant took out his money bag and called for his bill. The innkeeper smiled. I'm afraid it's a big bill, but so long as you're not fussy about money, we can easily come to terms. Allowing 100 piastres discount, I think you owe me about 200. 200 piastres? 200? The merchant's first shock at the high total turned to anger as the innkeeper explained his bill. Let us suppose that the chicken you ate 3 months ago and didn't pay for had laid an egg every day. That would make 90 eggs.
Oh.
If they had been left to hatch, there would have been as many chickens. And these, of course, would have grown up and laid many eggs. I should have had a large poultry yard by now, all from your fowl and eggs. And you can easily figure the hundreds of piastres I would have made from them. Now you complain, even after I allow you a big discount on the cost of all that, and even throw in the food you had last night. You ought to be glad I'm only asking 200 piastres for my loss. The innkeeper's claim was disputed by the merchant, and the case came to court. Before the hearing, the innkeeper had sent a fine, fat goose to the Qadi, and so his charges against the merchant were listened to with favor. The merchant was found responsible for a great loss by the innkeeper and ordered to bring 200 piastres on the following day. One of the people in the village who heard the merchant's loud wails of unhappiness was Nasr-ed-din Hoja. The Hoja listened carefully and then promised to help. He told the merchant to ask for a 3-day stay of judgment. 3 days later, the merchant, with his precious money bag, faced the Qadi and the innkeeper. But in spite of his promise to help, the Hoja was nowhere to be seen. Finally, the Qadi sent someone to fetch Nasr-ed-din. And an hour later, the Hoja stood in court. Qadi, I was just coming here when my partner at the farm came in. He was going to sow the field with ordinary wheat. But I stopped him and went to the cereal bins where we keep our boiled wheat. That's just as good, I told him, and gave him sacks of it to sow in all our fields. The Qadi's voice was filled with scorn for the Hoja. Gentlemen, you have heard him. This man actually sows his field with cooked wheat. Is it possible for the court to listen to such nonsense? Just as possible, answered the Hoja, as it is to raise a large yard of poultry from a roast fowl and some boiled eggs, for which you have condemned this worthy merchant to pay 200 piastres. And the judgment against the merchant was laughed out of court. When the laughter died away in that courtroom long ago, the merchant was left with a lesson that the Hoja had made quite clear. Be careful to whom you get in debt. And that lesson applies just as well today, even to international affairs. Sometimes it is very convenient to have credit or funds extended to us. It helps bring progress. But at those times, we should be very careful that the country to whom we become indebted is interested in helping us, and not mainly in seeing that we become part of its empire, or in handing us an innkeeper's bill.